Mubarak has been an ally of ours in a number of things. I would not refer to him as a dictator.
Vice President Biden choosing his words carefully as the situation in Egypt worsens.
But a very awkward dance for the Obama administration. Top Line starts right now.
Hello and welcome to ABC News Top Line. I'm Rick Klein.
I'm Karen Travers.
Every day at noon Eastern, right here with the latest in politics. We'll get right to it. Karen, what's your first top line?
Egypt erupts. The protests continue in Egypt, and there is word now that there is a curfew being installed. We're expecting President Mubarak to speak sometime soon, and the Obama administration is really trying to play this carefully. You saw that from Joe Biden in an interview with PBS's NewsHour yesterday, and this is all coming to you on Twitter.
That's right. The revolution is being Twitterized, and it is a dance of sorts, as you say. Next up today, Pence passes. The first major piece of 2012 falls into place, and Mike Pence, the congressman from Indiana, says he chooses Indiana, almost certainly going to run for governor, but not running for president. This may open up a little bit of oxygen among social conservatives and fiscal conservatives among presidential contenders, but I don't think this is going to majorly reorder the presidential field.
Perhaps not that tough of a decision. He came in at 2% in the ABC News Washington Post poll from last week. Next up, Rahm rejoices. Rahm Emanuel will get to run for mayor of Chicago. The state Supreme Court weighs in yesterday and says he will be on the ballot. The residency requirement goes away. He was back on the campaign trail yesterday, shaking hands. He's still the clear frontrunner.
I think that's right, and it must have been a bit of a scare, but it's a big day for the @Mayor Emanuel Twitter feed, which is one of my personal favorites. Finally today, it is Jay's jousting. Get ready for a new face up at the podium. Vice President Biden's communications director, or spokesman rather, is Jay Carney, and he is now going to be the White House press secretary. He'll be the face that we see at the briefings. He is a familiar face to many here at ABC, a frequent guest on the This Week Roundtable, as well as a former Time Magazine Washington bureau chief. So he's going to bring a different face, and as a former journalist, someone that has a sense of the media in a different way, and also worked on the inside.
An insider, but an outsider. He's not part of that Obama group that came from Chicago. He was working in Washington at that time. So perhaps there is a little bit of a fresh start there for the Obama communications shop.
All right, we're hoping to bring you the Secretary of Commerce, Gary Locke. Do we have you, Mr. Secretary, right now?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, great. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. Commerce is such an important focus right now of the Obama administration. And Mr. Secretary, I want to ask you, the bad headlines, the bad blood that seems to be there between business and the White House, is it all done after this series of moves that you guys have made in the direction of business?
Well, actually, there's been a lot of coordination and cooperation with the business community ever since the president took office. And more recently, that engagement has been amplified. And look at the great success that the president had with the business community on his recent trip to India, where he was able to really bring CEOs with him. This was planned many, many months ago, well in advance of the trip, but to really highlight the great products and services that American companies offer and can sell. And then, of course, when President Hu Jintao came to D.C. just a few weeks ago, we were able to announce some $45 billion of sales of American products and services to China. So we're really seeing that the president amplifying and focusing on a priority from day one, which is getting our economy moving again, and that really involves selling more of made-in-USA goods and services. Because the more that American companies export, the more they produce, and the more they produce, the more people they hire, and that means jobs.
Mr. Secretary, next week the president is going to be making a big speech to the Chamber of Commerce, the first time he's addressed them as president. Give us a little preview of what we might expect to hear from the president next week, and why is he going there? Why is he going into the belly of the beast? Chamber of Commerce has not been a fan of the Obama agenda for the last 2 years.
Well, actually, there's been a lot of areas in which the administration and the Chamber of Commerce and the Business Roundtable and business community have actually been joined together. Whether it's increasing exports, whether it was the initial stimulus bill, road construction, infrastructure enhancements to export controls, and of course, selling more American-made goods and services is very important to everybody. And the president actually talked about this a year ago when he talked to the Business Roundtable, saying that the government doesn't produce jobs, it's the private sector. So we're really looking at programs and policies where we can join together to help move the economy along, because obviously over 9% unemployment is unacceptable. And the president has said that as long as a person is still looking for a job, our work in the administration is not done.
As you know, the Chamber came out against the health care law. They came out against Wall Street reform. They spent millions of dollars trying to defeat Democrats in the campaign. Are you confident that you're going to get them to buy into this ambitious new program that he talked about, new investments? That actually means new spending. Will the Chamber of Commerce support that?
Well, first of all, the president has indicated that he wants to have greater investments in infrastructure, roads and bridge repair and construction, because we know that produces jobs. And these are things that have to be done sooner or later. The longer you wait, the more expensive it is. Also, greater investments in education. But he's all going to do that while holding the overall budget constant and frozen, which means deeper cuts elsewhere. And the president has called for a 5-year freeze on discretionary domestic spending. So issues like the Defense Department, things like that have to be addressed. But the president has also said that we need to have cuts in the military budget, and that the deficits that we've had for many, many years cannot be sustained. But there is really a lot of common agreement between the Chamber and the administration, whether it's increasing exports, whether it's focusing on export controls, making sure that we enhance our national security without inhibiting and restricting the sales of American companies abroad, when the very products that American companies make are freely available all around the world.
Mr. Secretary, some news today out of the Commerce Department that the fourth quarter growth of 2010 was 3.2%. That was an increase from the previous quarter and the most for last year. But when will we see that translate into jobs?
Well, we're actually seeing it every month in 2010. We actually had positive private sector job growth. Over 1 million individuals hired by the private sector in the last 1 year alone. And of course, exports are up. Exports are up 17% in 2010 over 2009. Exports of manufactured goods is up 22% over 2009. And exports, which is a big focus of the administration, contributed just as much to our overall growth in the economy as domestic spending and domestic investment. And that's what we in the Commerce Department are really focused on for the next several years. The president's goal is to double exports over the next 5 years by 2015, supporting millions of new jobs. And we're already on track to meet that goal. The reality is that American companies don't export as much as they could or should. Only 1% of U.S. companies export. And of those, almost 60% export to only one country, typically small, medium-sized companies. If we could help that 60% of U.S. companies export to 2 or 3 additional countries, then our exports and therefore our jobs will grow substantially.
And Mr. Secretary, in our last 30 seconds or so here, a headline that caught my eye today in the Wall Street Journal, one particular hedge fund advisor made $5 billion just by himself, $5 billion last year, and he's actually going to pay a lower tax rate than anyone else would because of a special loophole that exists for them. How is this still happening, and what is the Obama administration doing about it? Even years after the financial crisis, that something like this can happen.
Well, I'm not sure that that's in any way involved in the financial regulatory reform. It's really part of the bizarre tax code that we have that really puzzles and frustrates both businesses and individuals when you have a variety of tax loopholes, which then causes the overall tax rate to be very high. And it's one of the priorities of the business community to have a more sound tax code, an overhaul of the tax code, that will actually encourage job creation and formation, eliminating some of these tax holes. And the president has indicated that he wants to work with the business community and the Congress on overhauling our tax code.
Draw it to a close there. Secretary Gary Locke, thank you for being our guest here on Top Line. Really appreciate it.